Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. And when it comes to the auction 110 results that we just received a few days ago, AT&T came out the big winner. They spent the most and they got the most amount of the available spectrum that they were able to purchase. As you can see on the map, they got 40 megahertz national in every inch of the United States, which you heard me say on the channel for plenty of videos now that I was very confident that they would do that. And I felt like after auction 107 and the amount that they spent, they may have not gotten the amount that they wanted to get because they probably felt like they would have had gotten into a bidding war with Verizon and that they would have the spending would have gotten out of hand. So they kind of took a step back. They spent the 27 billion, and they said, and at that point is when I believe they made up their mind. We're going to spend this here, and we're going to go as big as we need to in auction 110 to get that additional 40 megahertz, and they did just that. Now, what does this do for AT&T? I know many of you have been wondering, have been asking, well, how important is this DoD spectrum? Now, for one, on paper, it does help AT&T close the spectrum gap. So it doesn't look as bad anymore on paper when analysts and media break it down. So they've closed that mid-band spectrum gap. Not to its entirety, but I think they closed it enough. If you think, you got to think, when you look at T-Mobile and Verizon spectrum holdings on that mid-band, you got to think home internet comes with that. That's traffic on the core. AT&T is not going to have that same traffic. They're not going to do fixed wireless at scale because they have fiber going to the house, and they're expanding that every year. They want to be at 30 million households covered by 2025. And the difference is fixed wireless is going to cover, 50 million at scale. So, of course, there's going to be a larger swath of households covered across because it's through the wireless airwaves. But when AT&T says 30 million households, there's likely going to be more households consecutively in your neighborhood versus fixed wireless. Like I've mentioned before, you can literally sign up for fixed wireless on one side of the neighborhood, but can't get it on the other side of the neighborhood. At least from what I was checking the availability. With fiber, if they put it to if they extend it, like I said, if they build it out to the house, it's going to be consecutive. It's not just going to be one house, two houses, and then the other five are going to be left alone. They usually try to build out consecutively. So that's where I think AT&T does have a plus, and they are going to, of course, I think, further expand beyond the 30 million. It just makes sense. And Stanky has a great point. He said it at the recent conference. There's going to be, at some point in time, there's going to be usage as 4K gets more mainstream, which it will be. We're starting to see it now on live TV. And then eventually we get into 8K. And that's going to require an immense amount of traffic on the cores of the wireless networks. It's going to be hard to maintain that over time. So Stanky is onto something in terms of this fiber build and where they're going to take it. They wouldn't do it if it didn't make sense. It's making sense. People are getting into the product. They're staying longer, and they're satisfied. I mean, gaming is going to the cloud. That's going to require a strong internet connection. Households, you have 3, 4, 5 rooms streaming 4K, playing games. You're going to need that direct connection on bandwidth. Again, with fixed wireless, you're still sharing that same tower with everyone in your household and everybody else in the neighborhood when it comes to mobile and or the home broadband. So again, like I said, this is a huge play by AT&T, this DoD spectrum. It clears, I'm being told, in the summer. around the summer time frame is when the spectrum is going to start clearing. So if what I'm being told doesn't come to fruition for Verizon, then Verizon will have to wait until December 23 to clear that B block that they purchased. In other words, for them to turn on any other additional spectrum outside of the top 46 PEAs, they're going to have to wait that long. When with this DoD spectrum, AT&T can go build it now and turn it on this year still. So that's where AT&T will very quickly have an advantage, because they can come to El Paso and deploy this. They can go to Albuquerque, deploy this. They can go to Tucson. They can go to, DC. They can go to Atlanta. They can go to Denver. They can deploy this. Those are some of the areas where Verizon currently has no access to any of that C-band until that December target, 2023, unless they can get that early clearance pushed through with the legal team. So that's where AT&T does have that advantage, and I think they play big on that. I'm being told some good things behind the scenes, and they're going to go big on that DoD spectrum, and it's already being deployed in New York City. Actually, equipment was installed ahead of the auction results, actually, so AT&T was working a bit ahead of schedule. So they were very confident in their winnings and what they spent would be enough. So, of course, the auction team knew what they had, bought and purchased, and Stenky and Miguel Frisch, they were all in on it, and they knew that they had bought the most and what they had purchased. So, of course, they started deploying some testing gear ahead of time, and they're going to go big. They're going to go big this year, especially in that second half. Once that media spinoff is done, they're going to go even bigger. They're going to accelerate. They'll need additional densification. I'll tell you guys that with confidence right now. They will need additional densification. It has to happen. If we're talking about range and site spacing with the higher band frequency, they're going to need it, especially in El Paso. They're going to need additional densification. There are some areas where site spacing is 2 to 3, sometimes even 4 miles. That's just not going to cut it. But once again, to the defense of AT&T, they do have great spectrum holdings, below 2 gigahertz. They have a great balanced portfolio on that low band. They have AWS PCS. They also have 2.3 with WCS band 30. So they have some great spectrum holdings once you drop off of C-band. And there will be scenarios where you are going to drop off of C-band. There's going to be an area or two where they didn't densify enough. There's going to be some indoor scenarios where you're just going to drop off of C-band, and you have to rely on those lower end spectrum holdings. Now, where AT&T is going to get very scary is once phones and networks are capable of aggregating low band. They have the most low band bandwidth in the entire industry. They've always had it. T-Mobile closed that gap with the 600 megahertz auction, but they couldn't quite get there on a nationwide scale. AT&T just went big. They like spectrum. They always loved purchasing spectrum, so they went for band 14. They got that contract. They got band 12. They got 29. I mean, they're loaded on low band. And then, of course, they also got band 5 as well. Not nationwide, but they also have that in their arsenal as well. So it's gonna be interesting to see AT&T work and maneuver this. This is gonna be a big year for them. I should have more info in a couple of weeks. I'm waiting on that one of the internal newsletters to come out to see if there's gonna be like a tranche 1 of the DoD deployment, like there was with the C-band. They're now on tranche 2 as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how quickly they deploy this. I'm being told there is a possibility they deploy this DoD quicker than C-band, because they can deploy this DoD wherever they want. It clears this summer. They can deploy it in rural America. They can deploy it anywhere they want. They have clearance of it they'll have clearance in the top 100 PEAs. They'll have clearance in, like I said, in rural, suburban. They're going to have an advantage if they play their cards right, and if Verizon doesn't get that very, very early clearance on the B block in some of the PEAs that they're targeting. So let me know what you think about this. I think this is a very competitive time in the wireless industry. AT&T is going with a balanced spectrum approach and the fiber to the house. They're going to continue that. That's not going to stop. That is not stopping. They are going to continue laying fiber to the house, and they're going to continue deploying the wireless networks. That's going to be their main focus. They're back to being a pure connectivity player. Fiber is the added bonus. It brings in additional revenue. And that's what they're going to push moving forward. And I think they're going to invest enough after the media spinoff, and they're going to do a great job of pushing their product and making it the best that it can be. So stay tuned for more. I got more updates coming. C-band launch tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. There's going to be some interesting stuff. I'm already being told engineers are going to prep around 10:30, 11. Then the launch is set for that, like I said, that maintenance window. So the launch initially is going to be at 12 a.m., midnight, or 12:01. And then the engineers are all going to do test drives. They're going to drive around. They're going to test. They're going to test devices versus consumer devices. They're going to test to make sure that it's good to go. So you guys, that are up late, driving around 1 a.m. or whatnot, you'll likely connect to it and you'll be able to test on the consumer side. And then, of course, for those of you who are going to be asleep, tomorrow is when, if it's deployed in your area and you're part of the top 46, you're going to be able to experience the C-band deployment. So thanks again for watching. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe. Follow my social media outlets for more updates and interactions. This is Tyrone with Tech Live, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.